Hey everyone, Blake Lovell, Southeastern 14, back here with more SEC roster movements. And the good news for SEC teams is that the players are actually coming to the SEC. So we're not really talking transfers away, although we know those are not finished yet. But we're talking about transfers on the way in, and specifically for one team in particular, the Florida Gators. And Todd Golden and his staff doing some work right now on the transfer front. And so we've got a couple to discuss with the Gators. Let's start with Walter Clayton Jr., who goes from Iona to Florida. Now, there was the thought perhaps that Clayton would follow his old coach, of course, was Rick Pitino, at Iona to St. John's. However, that did not happen as Clayton ultimately announced that he would be going to Gainesville, to his home state as a Lake Wales, Florida native, to join Todd Golden's roster. And it's a nice addition, which has kind of been the theme. We talked about the Gators landing E.J. Jarvis previously from Yale. We're going to talk about another big addition, quite literally, here in a second. But Clayton, someone who joins this roster as a guard in the backcourt now. I think you just look at the way this team is kind of shaping up. And I mean, Clayton he's someone that I think is going to fit in really well with this team. Because, like we said, you've got kind of the additions that they've made and more importantly, I think kind of putting this as a whole before we kind of look at Clayton specifically, getting Riley Kugel back, I thought was really important for Florida. And now you add Clayton to the mix, someone who averaged 16.8 points per game last season. And more importantly, I think it's worth noting this is someone who started 31 games for an NCAA tournament team, played 30.4 minutes per game, but he hit 72 3-pointers. And you guys know my common theme and something we talked about all season long is that the SEC is a league that has really struggled from the 3-point line. And we're starting to see some SEC teams really go out and bring in some pretty dynamic shooters. Not just the fact that Clayton hit 72 threes. He shot 43.1% from the 3-point line, which is pretty remarkable when you think about it. Now, of course, you're stepping up, going from, um, you know, that conference to the SEC. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, how does that dynamic come into play? But I think having someone that can just shoot the ball like Clayton, that is huge for this Florida Gators team. Because as we said, that can be the big separator if you're an SEC team right now, is your ability to shoot the three. Florida shot 31.4% from three last season, 313th nationally. That was not really an element for them. And if you bring in someone like this who can make shots consistently from outside, even though, like I said, there could be an adjustment going to playing, in a league like this where we know the perimeter defense is what it is. Got a lot of quick guards, you got a lot of size and athleticism, contesting shots. So it can be tougher to get those same kind of looks. I don't know if he's going to shoot 43% in the SEC, but still, a proven shot maker from outside is important for pretty much every team in the league at this point. And so, experience, just kind of adding him into the mix, as I said, with the return of Riley Kugel and kind of looking ahead for the Gators and having a really good sense of what they're going to look like this next season. I think you've got to be optimistic just with Clayton's addition. And again, we're going to get to another one here in a second, but Clayton, I think, is a big time, guard who can really come in and has played for Rick Pitino. And I think really just understands kind of the dynamic and then the playmaking ability needed to be a very successful college basketball player. And we've already seen that with him. Shot about 46% from the floor as a whole. We talked about the 43 point, what was it, 43.1%, excuse me, from 3-point land. So, yeah, I think this is a big one for the Gators to kind of pair him now with Riley Kugel's return. And of course, we haven't even gotten to the entire roster. We'll do that moving forward. But I think a very, very nice addition for the Gators here. And they also get an addition in the front court. And I said quite literally a big one. It is indeed, because that is the 7'1" Micah Handlogten, who's going to come over from Marshall and now join the Gators. Fun fact, of course, if you watch Marshall play, kind of Dan D'Antoni's style is that they are going to get up and down the floor. They actually wound up being number one in the country in average offensive possession length. So they will get down the floor. So this is someone I think from a stamina standpoint, used to playing on a team that really got up and down the floor. And I think, we certainly see elements of that and how Todd Golden plays. I think Marshall was top 15 in terms of adjusted tempo, but they were first nationally. I'm looking at now 14.9 seconds was their average offensive possession length. So someone that understands how to get up and down the floor as a 7'1" guy, that's pretty good and pretty invaluable, I think, when you look at it as a whole. Averaged 7.6 points per game, 9.8 rebounds per game, shot 66.2% from the floor. Now, keep that in mind and consider this. He also shot 76% from two in conference play. So a pretty just I don't even know what to say about that. Um, that's a high percentage. Now, again, the Sun Belt is not the SEC, and there will be an adjustment. I think always for big men. You guys know what I say. It's really more adjusting to the physicality and the style, and I think that's where, Handlogten's going to have to adjust to that physicality. The strength aspect, all those things are going to be important. So improving in those areas will be essential, I think, for him to be very effective. But look, this is a Florida team that's losing Colin Castleton, right? You're replacing him now with a 7'1" guy. And you're talking about the reigning Sun Belt Freshman of the Year. Started all 32 games for Marshall, as I talked about, just the quickness of that team and how they played. So he's used to kind of getting up and down the floor. I think he finished 11th nationally in blocks per game, 2.3 blocks per contest. And of course, Colin Castleton, I think, was around 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there nationally. So I'm not saying he's going to be Colin Castleton, folks, but if you're just talking about stats wise and what you have to replace, this is the kind of big man you want to be able to try to do that. And I think he's also really going to help on the rebounding side. Florida was not a great rebounding team this past season. And so I think that's going to be important is for him to help them there. So this is someone I have no doubt that Florida's expecting to help them in a lot of different areas. And like I said, it's probably not fair to say he's going to come in and do exactly what Colin Castleton did, but with the size, with the efficiency, the rebounding, the blocking shots, all of that is going to come into play here. And I think it's a very important pickup for the Gators in that regard, because we know how this league plays and we say it all year long. Having a guy like that who can protect the rim and rebound, that is just as important as anything in the SEC, given the playing styles and all those kind of things. So, no doubt in my mind, Gators should be better on the rebounding front with Handlogten in the mix. And now, as we said, you've got Walter Clayton added in the backcourt. You've got EJ Jarvis, who we talked about, 6'8" guy from Yale, who will do a lot of things to help them as well on multiple fronts. So you're seeing the roster come together now, and sort of Todd Golden, I think, rebuilding kind of the overall roster and the foundation of it. And at least on paper, I always say you never know until you actually see everybody out there together. But on paper, he's doing a very good job, and Florida has a ton of offseason momentum right now. And we'll see how all the pieces fit together. But it's hard to deny the talent that's going to be on the roster for this Florida Gators team as of right now. And my guess is they're probably not done. So there's probably more to come if you're a Florida fan. And so, yeah, Todd Golden clearly has identified some of those areas of need, and shooting, rebounding. Yeah, it's all there with, I think, this group that they're bringing in. We talked about Clayton and Longden, also EJ Jarvis, and I said perhaps more to come for the Gators. All right, one more to discuss here. And as we always say, these are very fast moving, so there'll probably be more. And by the time you watch this, I may already be putting together video for the next one, because there's probably going to be more transfers out there. But let's talk about Brandon Murray, who returns to the Southeastern Conference as a former LSU player. Now went to Georgetown, as we know, was there a season. Now he is headed to join Chris Beard at Ole Miss. And, I think an important pickup for Chris Beard, given kind of the nature of that Ole Miss roster. We talked about it. There's kind of the struggles at times consistently. Like we said, sort of the Kermit Davis era. And I didn't think they did a bad job as a staff. I just think they ran into injury issues, and it just was finding that consistency was always a problem. And because of that, and the scoring at times, we said, it was a team that really felt like needed to pick things up scoring wise. And I think Brandon Murray, now you look at it, right? I mean, averaged about 14 points per game at Georgetown, 34.4 minutes per game last season, started 59 of 60 games so far in college. So remember, that's one season each. LSU and Georgetown, he started 59 of the 60 games he's played in. So I think having that experience is important, especially now returning to the SEC. And I think just the overall toughness and the defense. I mean, that's call it what it is. I mean, with Chris Beard teams, You guys know, if you watch the teams, Texas Tech, it was all about kind of defending, and but he's not just that. I mean, he will defend. He will be a great defender, I think, for Ole Miss, but he's going to be able to score and give them a scoring boost that I think that team just absolutely needs right now. Moving forward, not to say, we know who's on the roster coming back, but we talked about, if you just compare it to last season, that was a team that just really struggled to find its identity on offense. And so I think, adding someone like Brandon Murray to the mix, that will help, because you do have a high tier score, I think, in terms of what he can do, and just the defensive aspect. I think that there's no doubt about it. He's really going to be a potential lockdown defender for them, given his playing style and the way he plays. So I think that's a significant addition for Ole Miss as they try to make their way back up the standings in the SEC, and we'll see what happens, because I think there'll be more moves that'll need to be made for them to do that. But this is a pretty significant one, I think, here right off the bat for Ole Miss. So there you go. There's some thoughts on some of the transfers in SEC basketball as of right now. There will be more coming and going. That's just the way it works. But we'll have you covered here at Southeastern 14. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. That helps us out. As always, we appreciate the support from our proud sponsor, Bearded Iris. Check out all their information in the description below. Click on that link to check out everything Bearded Iris has to offer, and we appreciate them supporting our channel. And a lot more stuff on the way. SEC football, SEC baseball, it's all here on the channel. And I'll continue to look at all these SEC basketball roster moves. So go back through, check out the ones maybe you already missed. We've looked at some of them individually, some in the same video. They're all there. So check it out, and a lot more to come here at Southeastern 14. So appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk to you again here soon at Southeastern 14.